My name is LaVerne Jane Opheim Gleason. I was born in Mobridge, South Dakota, December 1728. My parents were Lars Opheim, married Gunilda Johnson. Got married in December of 1927. They took a honeymoon to Denver, Colorado. Dad had a brand new car and it cost him $600. Dad ended up in the hospital with something wrong with his lung. He rode Broncos and they think it was hitting his chest on the horn of the saddle. They think that's what caused it. Doctor told him he couldn't spend another winter in South Dakota. He had to get in warmer weather. So they went to California for a year. Now this is when Mom and Dad started home, and Donna was born in Albuquerque, New Mexico. This is Dad washing diapers. See, she was in the hospital and he was taking care of me, and they were camping. Dad was a farmer, Mom was a housewife, and she'd get up and milk 10 cows every morning for many years. She sold cream. We'd send 10 gallons to the creameries, and the check would come in the mail to her. She enjoyed that. They built a house right after they got married, right on the prairie. It was right in the middle of the Depression. Somebody came and told Grandpa that the banks had closed. He walked the floor and pounded his chest. He was really upset. And that lasted for about 10 years. About 1936, it started letting up. There was something called the dust bowl. The dust was as fine as sugar. It seeped into every crack and cranny. Mom tried to keep house and it was almost impossible. The dust would get in so bad that it would pile up on the fences. You could walk right over the fence on the pile of dirt. Of course, when the war started, that changed everything because people started getting work and stuff. Donna and I played and we always had a good time, and I don't know what was so funny, but I laughed at everything he did. We come in one day with dirty feet and Mom was scrubbing the floor, of course, not on her hands and knees. Here we come in, and with those awful feet, she said, "Will you get your big duck feet off my clean floor?" I don't know why they were duck feet. I said, "Come on, Donald, we'll go outside and we can laugh all we want to." I love making mud pies. And one day we went down the chicken coop and started a fire in a cream can. We had our mud just a-bubbling, and Dad caught us, and he chased us. We run just like a couple of chickens. And when we come back, he gave us a lecture. He said, "Don't you know you could have burnt down the whole farm?" Darlene was born in 1936. The day she was born, Dad had sheep shears. The guys that come by sheared the sheep, and you'd come out with a great big fluffy bundle of wool. I went to a one-room schoolhouse. I was 5 and a half. Mom shouldn't have sent me to school that young. I was much too young, but there was a neighbor lady that was a teacher, and she wanted me in the school, and she talked Mom into letting me go. Well, she got married, and you couldn't teach school if you were married back in those days. Some old woman come out from Selby. She was just real stern, and I was half scared of her. We had desks with a hole where the inkwell was, and I had stuck all my scrap paper down in there, and she told me I was going to be a terrible housekeeper because I was so messy. Dad got us one horse and a buggy, and Donna and I rode that for quite a while, and then it got so cold we had a blanket with us, of course. We put the blanket over our head and let the horse take us home. The neighbor fought and told Dad, so he put a stop to that. Dad came from a family, 4 boys and 3 girls. They lived in the house right across the lake from us. They called it the lake, but it was just a pasture when I was a kid. Later on, it filled up and became a lake. Grandpa came to America from Norway before South Dakota was a state, and it became a state soon after he got here. They lived in a sod house for several years. In fact, I think she had 4 of her babies in that sod house. But they said sod houses were warm in the winter and cool in the summer. Dad couldn't see how his mother stood that for so many years, but there was no trees in South Dakota, none at all. If you came to part of the country where there were a lot of trees, people built log houses, but there was nothing to build with. Grandpa finally found a house that somebody was moving, so that he bought the house and moved it onto his land. When he came to America, they were giving land away if you homesteaded. You get so many acres, and then you could purchase more later on. Grandpa donated land to build a church, and that's where the folks belonged for a long time. Family reunions every year, and they were a lot of fun. And all the family would get together. One day, I don't know what we were thinking, my cousin Frances, that was Alton's daughter, we decided to meet one night over on the county line, which was, I had to run across the lake. We waited till our parents went to sleep. I was always kind of scared of the dark. And I found them, they were standing waiting for me and Frances, Alton's daughter, and Ruth Byrie, a neighbor girl. And we strolled around. It was real moonlight night, and run into some other boys. One of them was the other girl's brother, and I don't know, they talked to him because they knew him. Anyway, they left, and we kept strolling around. We ended up at the schoolhouse, and in those days, they had commodities. They'd send things to eat to the school, and there was a whole big bag of prunes. And we stuffed ourselves with prunes, and then we decided we better start home. So I we went back to the county line, and I started across the lake again, and I run all the way. I always felt something was chasing me again. Anyway, I sneaked in the front door, and there stood Mom in the kitchen. I don't know what in the world she was doing up. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning. She looked at me, and I said, I guess I had to explain what I had done. She didn't tell Dad. My mom was born at home out in the country, where they lived. I think she had 5 brothers and 3 sisters. Norman could start telling stories, and Dad would laugh so hard he could cry. He told about a guy that they sent him upstairs to wake the hired hand. And he said he went upstairs, he poked the guy, and the guy had died. And the guy come down, and he told him that the guy was, dead, and then he washed this one finger. They were all in the kitchen. Norman would come and visit. I would be so tickled when he'd come in the door, because we knew there would be a lot of fun. And then one night we were laughing and carrying on and just doing different things. And the first thing we knew, Dad pulled himself up and hooked his toes on the edge of the doorway. And there he hung upside down.
Grandpa did.
Anyway, of course, we all laughed and everything, and he'd come down, and I'd sit in the kitchen reading. I love to read. I sat in the kitchen reading one night, and everybody was around there laughing and talking, and Mom said, I need that stool. I was sitting on a kitchen stool. I stood up, and she took the stool, and I sat down. Right in the floor.
When we visited Grandma Johnson that one time that I remember, was she on the river then, or had she moved?
No, she hadn't moved yet. She lived there the whole time I was at home. It was a lot of fun to go down there, because it was just like going back out into the Wild West on the side of a hill. And the house was built right in there. We went to a country school, and the first one I went to was a little wooden schoolhouse, 1 room, with a potbelly stove. We had 8 grades in one room, 1 teacher, and she had to teach all of them. And usually they did pretty good because the kids, we went to grade school and went to high school, and when we got through, we were ready for college because we hadn't had any extracurriculars, so you just took the subjects you needed.
How'd you get to high school from the farm?
We had a car. We could drive. We didn't need license. I came to Greensboro, and they stopped me. And I said, "You don't need a license in South Dakota." He kind of grinned and he said, "You need them here." I had to go get my license, and I failed the first time. And I didn't want anybody to know it.
If your test had been following a combine with a pickup truck, you'd have been fine.
That would have been okay, yeah. My uncle Norman, the one that I had so much fun with, he had a little roadster with a cloth top. Mom and him worked all day putting a new top on his car. And Mom went in, and they both went in. She put the coffee pot on. They were going to relax, and looked out the door, and the goat stood on top of the new with all 4 feet through the top of the car. High school was kind of rough for me because I had never been anywhere, and I knew my cousins, and that was about all. See, Darlene, the country schools closed, and she got to go to town even while she was still in grade school, which was a big plus for her. You know, I was still out in the country, and we'd end up like she did. She ended up with all boys, and she was the only little girl, and I did the same thing. All boys were left, and I was the only girl. And I had long hair, and I had 2 pigtails, and I made 3 curls up here, and I tied up the pigtails and had a red bow. I don't know what my mother was thinking to let me go. I had no idea how to fix hair or do anything. I had been out in the country all my life. By the time I got to be a sophomore, it was a little better. And by the time I was a junior, I was getting more civilized. And I went into the principal's office to get my letter. I was in the band. And he said, "You know," he said, "when you came to the school here, I thought to myself, she'll never make it." So you see, I've come a long ways. Uncle Carl, I was his favorite niece. And he took me along to see an old friend of his. He sat talking to the old guy, and pretty soon the old guy told me, he says, "I've been to the grocery store today. Go in there and get yourself a peach." It was pitch dark, and I reached over, and a great big rat went. And I kept reaching, and the hand went right in the bag where the peach was, and I got it. After high school, I went off to college, and I met Roy, and that was it.